What's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today, doing the breakdown video for the George Kambosos versus Devin Haney showdown for the Undisputed Lightweight Championship of the World that's taking place Saturday, June 4th in the main event of an ESPN card. This fight all came together when, obviously Lomachenko couldn't commit to the fight with Kambosos, and so Kambosos moved on and went after Devin Haney instead. But ESPN and Top Rank signed Devin Haney to a 3-fight deal to come over and fight for them. So that includes, if Devin Haney wins the first fight and becomes the undisputed champion, then he will have to rematch Kambosos later on in the year and then have another fight following that. So if Kambosos wins, I think Haney's still tied into a 3-fight deal, but his I don't believe he's going to be able to choose, obviously Kambosos or Lomachenko after that. But heading into the fight, it's really anybody's fight. You got Kambosos, pretty much holds 3.5 of the titles. He holds the WBA, IBF, WBO, and the WBC franchise title, where Devin Haney holds the official WBO or WBC title. But the franchise title, really, when Lomachenko was going to fight Teofimo Lopez, the franchise title really became a big deal because the WBC came out. They wanted that to be officially sanctioned as an undisputed title fight. Even though Lomachenko gave up the WBC title to fight to fight Lopez, the IBF champion, instead of fighting Haney, because Haney was a nobody at the time. He hadn't done anything to that point. So the WBC upgraded Haney to champion, but then they started saying, heading into that fight, that because Loma was the franchise champion, that he really was the legitimate champ. And it created this big old, controversy between who is really the WBC champion. Well, we're going to decide that. We're going to walk away with one WBC champion and an undisputed champion on June 4th after these two guys are done fighting. And I'm pretty excited about it. We had Lomachenko last year, Josh Taylor and Canelo Alvarez unified belts in their respective divisions to become undisputed. I believe they were the 6th and 7th fighters in the 4-belt era, which is about 30 years now, to accomplish that, undisputed with all 4 belts. And then now, we're going to be, Charlo and Castaño are going to establish the 8th, hopefully, if they don't have a draw on May 14th, and then Kambosos and Haney will decide a 9th undisputed world champion. So it's quite an accomplishment. It's a rare feat, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who comes out on top in this fight. So as I do with with all my breakdown videos, I take the champion and start with them, and then the challenger, and I ask the same questions. Well, given they're both champions, in this one I'm starting with George Kambosos because he holds 3.5 of the belts, where Haney only holds the 1. And then I will, there's 5 questions to ask from both men. We talk about first, before the questions, it's what have they done rolling into the fight, then the 5 questions, and then I ask, is it better for boxing if one or the other wins? And then I give my prediction. So let's get it rolling with the undefeated unified champion, George Kambosos Jr., and see what he's done rolling into this fight. Well, Kambosos is coming off of his career best win, an upset 12-round split decision over Teofimo Lopez in November of last year that really shocked the world. Lopez came in heavy favorite after he had defeated Vasily Lomachenko, and most felt that he was going to go right through Kambosos, and he started to really hurt Kambosos in the first round, but then out of nowhere, Kambosos threw an overhand counter right hand that dropped Lopez, and after that it was anybody's game. But Kambosos seemed to outwork him, and then Lopez in the late part of the fight would put Kambosos down, and it did end up being a close fight. Went to the scorecards. Kambosos won, pulling off maybe the biggest upset of the year, as he became the unified lightweight champ with that win. Prior to that, he defeated Lee Selby to become the mandatory #1 contender. That was by split decision in a fight that I personally thought he lost. It was close though. And then prior to that, in 2019, he defeated Mickey Bay by a 12-round split decision. So Kambosos is used to dogfights and used to these things being close. So, but he's coming in very confident, very sure of himself. He's fighting at home in Australia, so he really has that working for him. And we're going to see how good George Kambosos really is heading into this fight. We're going to see who the better man is. And, I really think, but I think Kambosos is really confident and sure of himself. And we're going to see if he can put that together on June 4th. Now, what kind of style does Kambosos need to have to win this fight? And, he just needs to, in my opinion, he needs to get inside of Devin Haney's punches. He doesn't need to let Devin Haney dictate the pace from the outside. He needs to get inside, and he needs to throw punches and bunches. And he needs to try to land something significant. Kambosos is not a huge puncher, but he hits you hard enough to keep you honest. And I think if he can get inside of Haney, get on the inside and do some work there, and hopefully land a big, can counter whatever attack Devin Haney has. I think he can really make, scored some points, and I think he can pile up some rounds that way. Now, do I think George Kambosos can win this fight by knockout? I think Devin Haney has been hurt. He's been staggered by Jorge Linares, who's not a huge puncher, but a solid lightweight punch. I think Kambosos has about that kind of power that Linares does. The question is Linares' power was based off of perfectly timed shots. He's a very good boxer. Can Kambosos counter like he did against Lopez and hurt Haney? And I think he can, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of fight he gets drawn into. Both these guys have went the distance their last 3 fights out. So is there going to be a knockout? Can he hurt him? I think he can hurt him, but and I think the possibility for a knockout is there. I do. I'm not going to completely roll it out, but I really think it's more chance of a decision, and that leads to the next question. Can Kambosos beat Haney by a decision? I think he can. He's got to make it a dogfight. He's got to make it close. Do not let Devin Haney dictate with his boxing, because he'll get into that shell, and then that's all it will be, and he'll be glad to walk away with a clean decision. I think Kambosos needs to get in there, mix it up, and score points is what I think he needs to do. So that's and now the next question is, what does a win mean for George Kambosos here? I mean, it means the world. To become the undisputed world champion at home is huge. To become undisputed world champion, period, is a big deal. But if he can accomplish that feat at home in Australia, that's really gonna tear it up for George Kambosos. That's gonna rip through the boxing world, and it's gonna be huge. And he has a chance to make some serious history. So we're gonna see. But yeah, that's definitely big. It'll, in my opinion, it'll be bigger than the win over Haney, because I think on paper a lot of people are seeing Haney as the favorite, and that's just me. Now, what does a loss mean for George Kambosos? Well, it's going to be the first of his career, so it's going to be tough. But again, I think really it's either Haney's the favorite or it's a 50-50 type ordeal. So if he loses, I don't think it's going to shock too many people. But how does he lose, especially at home? It's definitely going to hurt to lose his belts, to suffer his first defeat. But how he loses, I think, is the big question of how bad it's going to hurt here. Because remember, he has the rematch clause. So if he loses a fight and it's not a blowout, he's going to be like, whatever, I got the rematch clause, we're gonna run it back. But if he goes out there and gets his ass whipped, I think that's really gonna do some damage and affect him. So we'll see. Now we're gonna move on to the undefeated WBC champion, Devin Haney. So heading in, Haney's coming off of his 2 career best wins. In 2021, he had the best year of his life. He took on Jorge Linares, a former 3-division champ, in a fight that a lot of people thought was going to be close, myself included. And he absolutely picked Jorge Linares apart, dominated him, completely outboxed him until I believe the 9th or 10th round, when he got caught with a huge punch at the end of the round. Really shook. He had trouble recovering in the championship rounds as he was jumping at Linares to hold on to him so he wouldn't get knocked out. I didn't like that. I felt like he should have got points taken away, but be that as it may, he did dominate the action up until that point, and he did walk away with a clean, unanimous decision out of it. That was big. But then he topped that to an extent in December when he took on Joseph Diaz Jr. And really dominated the action there. Diaz had his moments, he fought well, but Devin Haney's boxing ability and skills and size was just too much as he scored a convincing 12-round unanimous decision to leave no doubt. He dominated 2 top 10 lightweights, you know, by decision in 2021, and it really made him stand out in the boxing world. So heading into this one, he is supremely confident. He signed the deal for the rematch and a 3rd fight on top of that, which really, if he wins both the 1st and 2nd fights, it's going to lead to Lomachenko most likely in the 3rd fight. So the world is his oyster right now. Can he capitalize by going overseas and going into somebody else's backyard and pull it off? That's the big question here that we're going to have to wait and see. I definitely think he has the confidence, but is he going to be able to handle all that pressure? We'll see. Now, what kind of fight does Devin Haney need to have to win this one? To be honest, I think if Devin Haney sits down on his punches, he absolutely is going to box. That's just his style. So I don't expect a brawl. I think a brawl would be detrimental to his style. He needs to box. He needs to set up his punches to dominate the action. But Devin has power, and he needs to sit down on his punches because he hasn't been doing that in his last few fights. He's boxing, landing his shots, and then getting out of range. And he needs to take that risk and stay a half a second longer in the pocket and sit down on his punches in order to hurt Kambosos, because I think he might have to knock Kambosos out, or it has to be so one-sided that they can't rob him. Again, he's fighting in Australia. So, he's definitely going to have that against his back. So we got to see, but I do believe if he does that, he might be able to stop Kambosos or dominate him one-sidedly and retain his title by a decision. Now, can Haney win by knockout? I think he's got the ability to hurt Kambosos and stop him. The question is will he sit down on his punches? So I do think he can win by knockout, more likely second half of the fight after wearing him down, but I do believe he can win by knockout. Can he win by a decision? I think he can. But fighting in Australia, I don't think he wants to leave this in the judge's hands, period, but let alone in a close fight. He's got to be willing to score points, one-sided, and dominate the action. Like, really risk himself to dominate. So, yeah, he can win the decision, but the fact that he's in Australia, he cannot let this fight be close, in my opinion. Now, what does a win mean for Devin Haney? It'll be the biggest win of his career. It'll cement him as an undisputed champion. It's history in the making. And he will be a top dog at the very young age of 23, 24. And depending on how he wins, that'll lead into the rematch and then hopefully a Lomachenko fight. So a win here to become undisputed champion is huge for Devin Haney. Now, what does a loss mean for Devin Haney? It depends on how he loses. I mean, a loss is going to ruin the rematch, which will make a lot of money, and a third fight likely with Lomachenko. It's probably going to ruin that. And it's probably going to put him on the back burner from any other big fights for a minute, because he'll have lost. So a win is huge for Devin Haney. Absolutely needs it. A loss, I think any kind of loss would be detrimental to him, even a close one. A close one might hurt him more than a dominant performance for Kambosos over him, just because he's not going to be there, but people are going to be like, well, he fought that guy too close. He's got an unattractive style that's complicated, so we're not going to fight him. It's happened, guys. Trust me, I know. So, you know, a loss is really going to hurt Devin Haney. Is it better for boxing if Haney wins, or is it better for boxing if George Kambosos wins? And I really think it's about 50-50. But I would lean more towards Devin Haney because he's the younger, fresher guy, and he has so many years to own the craft that for him to continue to rise as an undefeated fighter and then undisputed champion, it just is a very good story. Kambosos is kind of that Rocky type story, upset guy, you know, and yeah, it's gonna be nice, you know, we can still ride that storm, but I think with Devin Haney, because of his talent, people are looking at him as he could be a future Hall of Famer and all-time great fighter. Kambosos, I don't think people are looking at him that way, you know, so we're gonna see. You know, I think it's better for boxing though if Devin Haney wins. And now my prediction on the fight. Who is going to win between George Kambosos Jr. and Devin Haney for the undisputed title on June 4th? And to be honest, I'm going with Devin Haney, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Kambosos pulls it off for a couple reasons. Haney, very talented, very good. He's absolutely the better boxer, and I think he can absolutely outbox George Kambosos. But I question him in a dogfight in somebody else's house. How will he handle that kind of fight? Is he going to be able to fend off, you know, those attacks that Kambosos is going to bring? Is he willing to get into a dogfight? Is he willing to take risk to leave no doubt? All those questions are unanswered. I guess I'm questioning the heart that I know Kambosos has, and that's not to say that I don't believe Devin Haney has heart. It's just I've seen Kambosos fight with a lot of heart and get pushed, you know, and the one time I saw Haney get pushed and hurt, he jumped on and grabbed on and really fought in a way where he should have got lost points, you know, and it was disappointing to see. So is Kambosos going to be able to push him that hard in this fight? And you know, again, I think talent-wise, Devin Haney should win this fight, and I'm picking him to win this fight. I'm picking him to win a decision. But I would not be surprised if George Kambosos pulls out this win, or if the judges are lenient to Kambosos like they were with Jeff Horn against Manny Pacquiao a few years ago. So, if they can do it to Pacquiao, they can do it to anybody. So, I think it's going to be a good fight. I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm picking Devin Haney to win this one and become the undisputed champion. I think it might be close, and that'll lead to a rematch, which would be good. And that's what I think is going to happen. So that's the breakdown video for George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin Haney for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world, taking place Saturday, June 4th, in the main event of an ESPN card. I really hope you guys pay attention and check this fight out. If you liked the video, smash the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. And this is True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.